Today, I'm going to give you all the unfiltered truth of the good, the bad, and the ugly aspects of getting your MBA, and just give you guys an honest, no BS take based on my first semester at Wharton. I'll be providing 3 main points for each of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and let's start off with the good. The first thing I want to talk about is non-grade disclosure, which is a policy that most MBA schools have, which prevent your employers from looking at your grades. So it basically creates a very non-competitive academic environment. Now, to the best of my knowledge, there are no other advanced degree programs that have this kind of policy because let's say you want to go into law or you want to be a doctor, grades will still matter, and doing well on tests and exams really impact your future employment. But MBA programs, for whatever reason, decided that grades really don't matter, and I think it's one of the best things that the programs got right. Not having to worry about grades is so refreshing in an academic setting because I remember taking so many classes in undergrad that just really had zero impact in my life, while I can still pay attention and work hard in the classes that I really do care about. So next semester, for instance, I'm taking a Python class, which I'm super excited for. And there were some professors throughout this earlier past semester who were really inspirational. And I worked decently hard because I wanted to actually learn because they motivated me to want to grasp the material. The second great thing about school is that it's an environment for exploration. If you think about it, so much of our lives is work. After the age of 22 or so, you exit university and then you just kind of work for almost the rest of your life. And so that's why a lot of people say that, yes, the MBA experience or the program itself is expensive, but in the long run, it could be worth it because when else in your 20s or 30s are you going to have the time to come across new people, new ideas, new opportunities almost every single day? And not only that, but also have the time to actually look and explore into anything that you're interested in. Because we all know when we have school or work, we get really, really busy and then we just kind of live for the weekends and don't spend every single day really exploring what we truly want to do. There are tons and tons of different career opportunities in almost any field that you're interested in. So whether it's a venture capital fellowship or an in-semester internship that a club emailed about, or there are stock pitch competitions that you can work on with your friends or classmates. And then there are a lot of different startups that are always looking for MBA interns, and you have that excuse to really be like, hey, I'm a student, I want to learn more and join a different industry that you otherwise may not have ever looked into. There are also team building and leadership exercises that I think are pretty unique and can help you grow so much as an individual. And so, for example, you can join a firefighting or Navy SEAL simulation, or you can join an Antarctica trek that will really kind of push you to your physical limits. And I definitely want to check out at least a few of these over these next 1.5 years I have left. And if I do, I'll definitely make a video about it in the future. What I think is not talked about often though is also you have the time to just take it easy one weekend or any given night and just reflect a lot on what you want to do. Or maybe you have a good conversation with someone older who's been in a field that you're interested in, and you can just reflect on that any given day or weekend, and you just have the time to just relax if you want to. Now, with that said, it's not always easy to just take it easy because of the third good part of getting your MBA, which is that it's just a ton of fun. At any given week, there are probably 2 to 3 events that you can go to with a group of classmates. And what's also really great is that you don't have to do any of the planning. And instead, there is a group of really high functioning, high performing MBA students who are great at executing that are planning all these events for you.
These are my party planning biatches.
There are also over 100 clubs at Wharton that cover a wide variety of interests, ranging from hockey to wine to professional clubs to cultural clubs. And then during your winter breaks and spring breaks and summer also, there are treks going to countries all over the world, ranging from anywhere from Kenya to India to anywhere in the US, South America, anywhere, honestly, even Antarctica. But what I think is really just the best part is proximity. So what I really enjoyed the most about undergrad is being just so close to all my friends. And then once I graduated, it would take some effort to actually meet up. But when you're in school, everyone is always trying to meet each other, and then you're going on trips together, forming new bonds, meeting people from all over the world and getting to hear their personal perspective, learning about their culture. And so that I think is really what makes the entire experience, on top of everything else I mentioned, really, really fun. So as you can tell, MBA life is pretty busy, but one thing I always still make the time for every morning is to keep up with the news. And people ask me often where I get my news from. And so I wanted to let you guys all know about a free daily newsletter that I always read, which is called The Daily Upside. And it currently has over 850,000 subscribers. What I really like about The Daily Upside is that it covers 3 kind of market moving stories each day, but it's also pretty lighthearted, has doses of wit and charisma that make the entire newsletter and their stories really easy to read. To show you what it looks like, one of their recent newsletters touched upon Tesla's recent discounting strategy, Turkey increasing its minimum wage by 55%, and how New York and New Jersey have become the US's busiest shipping port. If you enjoy reading deep dives, they also offer a weekend edition that breaks down industry trends and key events, with the most recent edition covering the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a part of America's Green Revolution. If you like what you've heard so far and you want to start your mornings with the hottest market news, then feel free to check out the Daily Upside using my link down in the description below. Alright, with that said, we went over the good parts about getting your MBA. Now let's go into the bad. First on the list is code switching. Code switching is a new term I learned about recently, but it's something we all actually do. It's basically when you adjust your behavior depending on the group you're with in order to optimize for the best likely outcomes. A famous example of this is when Obama was shaking hands with the 2012 Olympics men's US basketball team, and Key and Peele also did a really hilarious sketch about it, which I'll leave a link to down in the description below. Now, I know everyone probably wants to believe that they're the same amongst their different circles, but honestly, that's probably not true for anyone. And in MBA in particular, there are 3 different circles that you kind of have to put on a different face for. Even, it doesn't mean you're necessarily being fake, but you do have to kind of act differently in these different environments. For these different settings, the first one is academic, where you're in student mode, listening to lecture, working in group projects, or participating in class. The second setting is kind of career focused, and so you may be at a recruiting event where you have to be all nice and professional. And then the third is your social kind of mode, or so you have various different social circles, and you don't necessarily always have to act differently amongst your friends because you are who you are. And so this is the part where you can be the most relaxed, but it is a contrast between the academic and the career one. And I think what's most kind of tiring or can be overwhelming is squeezing all 3 of these into one day, which you often have to do. So for example, you may have a bunch of classes in the morning, so you're in academic mode, and then you might have some recruiting events, so you're in career mode, and then you might have a social event to go at the end of the night, so you're in social mode. And I think there are a bunch of studies on this that code switching can be pretty taxing, and it's in stark contrast to, let's say, if you work a 9-to-5 job and you live by yourself or with some people you know. 9 to 5, all you're doing is kind of being in work mode, and then you see people that you're familiar with. Maybe on the weekends you're more in social mode, but it's a very consistent type of lifestyle. Versus in the MBA, which is, all these different modes kind of switching from time to time, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. The second thing on the list is that everything is competitive. Now notice I said everything is competitive, not everyone, and let me explain why I made that distinction. So in general, the people, regardless of kind of general stereotypes of what you might think about MBAs, they're not really overly competitive people, at least with each other. The environment is not built that way because for school, academics don't really matter in terms of getting super good grades, but there is a lot of competition for kind of opportunities. So for example, the best classes with the best professors have limited spots, so not everyone can get them. For things as little as the hottest food club events or tennis lessons, if you don't sign up right away, then you pretty much won't be able to attend those events or get those lessons. And probably the biggest thing is that the companies that recruit usually have somewhere around 1 to 2 spots for each Wharton candidate. And then so they give a handful of interviews, but only 1 to 2 people are going to actually get that position. And so there's a lot of competition amongst different opportunities ranging from small to big. Now, with that said, people for things like recruiting are generally pretty helpful with one another. They want to see each other succeed. So there's not a ton of direct competition against one another, but just given the limited availability of all these different types of opportunities, everything is kind of competitive. The third bad aspect of getting your MBA are freeloaders in group projects. There are team or group related issues regardless if you're in undergrad or high school where you're working on a group project, or if you're at work and you're working in a team, right? Well, I think what makes the MBA kind of freeloader group project issue a little bit different is that grades truly don't matter, right? So in that situation, given the environment, there are people who really, really don't care and know they can get away with things. And so a few people kind of carry on the burden to complete a project that maybe they don't even really care about. And let me give you one of my personal experiences. So I'm going to keep things pretty vague here because I'm not here to ruin anyone's reputation. Just want to give you guys a real life example of why MBA group projects can suck. So for one class, I had 3 group projects across one semester, and we had the same group across all of those projects. And for that first one, we were working on Zoom for a few hours on the project, and there was one person who literally did not say or do anything throughout the entire few hours. And that was really the first time where I was like in a group project throughout the entire semester where someone just literally did not contribute at all. And then for the second group project, people were busy recruiting. And so I was okay, doing some additional work and ended up doing about 80% of the entire project. Me as someone who doesn't really care about my grades or my academic standing really at Wharton or throughout my MBA program, but I was just like, okay, I'll do all this work because I know you guys are busy. And so I did the work, gave it to the next group of people, like a few people who just had to do a little part, probably would take 30, 40 minutes max. But they ended up not doing it on time and then submitted it late. And so what was frustrating for me was, yes, they eventually did the work, but if you had a small responsibility, at least submit the project on time if I did everything else, right? And I don't even care about my grades. And then for the third group project, that's where I took a stand, where I knew that I could probably do everything in a few hours if I wanted to, but I only did a small portion of the project. And I said, hey, I'm going to only do this part. You guys have to figure out the rest. And so kind of like stood up for myself or whatever. And then we eventually got the project done, but no one was saying anything until the day before the actual deadline. And then we actually ended up submitting the project like 5 days late because I decided that I'm not going to do anything beyond that small portion that I mentioned. And then so everyone else had to kind of figure out the rest. And so that was my experience. I told them like, hey, this was honestly one of the worst group project experiences I've had in my entire life. And I'm not a super confrontational person when it comes to these things like this, or at least I used to not be when I was in undergrad, when I was working on these kind of academic group projects. And that was not a fun experience. Let's next go into why you probably clicked on this video, which is the ugly truths of getting your MBA. The first is that the cost of the MBA delays a lot of dreams. When you're in the MBA, people who come from all over the world and guest lecture and things like that say things like, oh, you're going to change the world one day and all that stuff. And I do think a lot of my classmates, super smart, super capable, and will change the world one day. It's just that for the vast majority of students, if you're paying out of pocket or you're taking on loans, the MBA is $200,000 to $300,000, right? And so it really sets you back a lot financially. And so you're gonna probably wanna take that safe job in consulting, tech, or investment banking that is gonna help you pay off those loans, right? It's really practical in my view, very understandable. What that means though is that for a few years, you're gonna be in that kind of safe job. And then maybe at that point in your early 30s or so, you're gonna wanna start a family. So it's harder for you to leave that job. Maybe you also wanna buy a house, more financial responsibilities. And then if you're not careful, I guess, for lack of better words, then you might be actually stuck in an industry that you never really thought that you'd be in forever. And so that's what I mean by whatever your dreams are, whatever those more pure kind of childlike almost dreams that you had when you were younger, of changing the world, all of those kind of thoughts and dreams may eventually kind of subside because of the debt that you have to take on as an MBA student. And so that's something I think is not super, super well covered. One thing that I do need to stress is that what I just said is a huge generalization. There are probably a lot of classmates who I don't even know who dream a lot bigger than me. And also there are a lot of people who are much smarter than me, more capable. There are people who've sold companies, much more impressive overall than me. So I'm not saying this from any kind of ivory tower or anything like that. It's more so that I've just had way too many conversations where it would be something along the lines of, I really want to do this, but those MBA loans, I got to pay those off first. The second ugly truth that I want to discuss is that there are a lot of useless classes. Almost every MBA program is going to have a set of core curriculum that you have to take. So like microecon, accounting, marketing, etc. And a lot of these I know for a fact that they are not really going to impact the rest of my life or have any kind of meaningful use because I've taken a lot of these classes in undergrad and those weren't like super, super essential for me to succeed in any part of my career. But, I do think that I understand why there is that core curriculum. It's just that, especially for the MBA program where grades don't matter, it ends up kind of feeling like you're just checking off the boxes or just trying to play this game where you're trying to get by and fulfill the requirement by doing as little as possible. The third ugly truth is that high school never ends. So in general, the people in MBA are pretty mature and well-rounded, but we're in a unique situation, right? Where we're not in a 9-to-5 job where you're meeting the same people all the time and pretty much nothing happens. Every day there's social interactions and then there's events to go to. There's gonna be things that happen as you constantly are interfacing with other humans. And then people love to talk about each other. That's not really unique for MBA programs. everyone in different circles like kind of like gossip about each other all the time, right? But as I kind of mentioned, in MBA programs, it's just unique because there's just so much interaction and then things are just bound to happen. And people just really love talking about one another.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Now, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think gossip from time to time is interesting and I can engage in those kind of conversations as well. But if I had to be a little bit critical about my MBA experience so far, is that sometimes the conversation can steer way too much purely just based on gossip, while I'd rather talk about our fears or our dreams or what we are striving to do personally and throughout our career. You know, those are the things that I really, really enjoy. And I think there's just like way too much focus on each other's business. And that's just my personal opinion. All right, so that covers the good, the bad, and the ugly aspects of getting your MBA based on my first semester at Wharton. And overall, I do want to stress that net, it's been a huge positive experience for me. Otherwise, I probably would have dropped out. Just wanted to give you guys the insider scoop of what things are like with a more critical eye, in addition to the good things as well. Also wanted to give you guys a friendly reminder about the Daily Upside, which you can check out using my link down in the description below. And with that said, wanted to conclude this video with a quote from the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is that if you work for a living, why do you kill yourself working? With that said, thank you all so much for watching. Hope to catch you all in the next video. Thanks so much and peace out.